për çështje civile, të drejtën e punës dhe pronës, trashëgëmi, kompenzim dëmesh, dhunë në familje, divorc e kujdestari fëmijësh, diskriminim, gjoba e shumë çështje të tjera në lidhje me të drejtat e njeriut, bashkë me këshilltarët ligjor të Klardit dhe avokatët të ndryshëm, takohemi çdo të mërkur nga ora 8:30 për të ofruar këshilla juridike. Për çdo pyetje apo këshillë, mund të na kontaktoni në Viber në numrin +383 48 44 6600. Kjo rubrik implementohet nga organizata Klard në bashkëpunim me TV1 dhe me përkraje të ambasadës amerikane në Prishtinë, Departamentit të Shtetit Amerikan, Byros së Narkotikëve Ndërkombëtar dhe çështjeve të zbatimit të ligjit.
Mirëmëngjesi, shikues të dashur, si zakonisht çdo të mërkure kemi emisionin në rubrikën Koha për Këshilla Juridike. Trajtojmë temat të ndryshme, sot me musafir të ndryshëm, ndërsa sot kemi një musafir special, është nga ambasada amerikane, kemi zotin Shawn Waddoups Drejtor i Departamentit Amerikan, respektivisht Byros së Narkotikëve Ndërkombëtar dhe çështjeve të zbatimit të ligjit, apo siç njihet me akronimin në gjuhën angleze INL, International Narcotics and Law Enforcement. Mr. Waddoups, good morning and welcome to our TV show Time for Legal Advice.
Good morning, Anton. I'm really glad you invited me to join you. I'm a big fan of the show and big fan of what you're doing to help Kosovans understand what their rights are and how to access justice when they need it.
Of course, when we talk about justice and the institutional building and capacity building of Kosovo justice institution, it's impossible to avoid the strong support and partnership that Kosovo government and Kosovo institutions are having from the United States government and the people of the United States through different sources and through different projects, starting from the U.S. Embassy and also from other agencies of the U.S. government. Can you tell us which field are mostly working and interested on the capacity building of the U.S. government to work together with Kosovo government and Kosovo institutions to reinforce law and order in Kosovo?
Sure. You'll have to have some patience with me. It will take a few minutes.
Of course, we have enough time, so we
do have a lot of engagement in this area, in addition to the other ways that the embassy works with the government of Kosovo to help improve the services that they're providing to citizens. Everything from energy and to healthcare. So, but specifically when we're talking about rule of law and governance, it's one of our top priorities in helping the institutions in Kosovo get better at serving Kosovans and their citizens. So I would guess we have about 40 people at the embassy who work full-time on this issue in different capacities. My office, INL, is one of many offices that deal with this. Of course, we have USAID programs that have been working with the judiciary and helping to support training judges, but improve court efficiency over time. And one of the big accomplishments recently by Kosovo is actually the establishment of a commercial court. And we think that's going to be really important for investment here in Kosovo as that court becomes better at meeting the needs of business people so that they can operate more efficiently. We have the Millennium Challenge Corporation that's been working on court transparency, helping citizens to understand better what's going on. We have our political section that works a lot on promoting human rights and the protection of individual rights, as well as looking at issues like corruption. And we've recently had, the United States is very concerned about what is going on with some of the corruption and transnational crime in the region, not just Kosovo, but in the Western Balkan region. So we have a new set of tools to hold people accountable when they're undermining democracy, and we've used those tools recently. We have, with the INL team, we have 4 major efforts that we're involved in. We work together with our colleagues in ISITAP to support the Kosovo Police and the Police Inspectorate of Kosovo to make sure that police become better at their jobs and have tools that they need and skills that they need in order to enforce the law and to investigate crime when it happens. We work together with OPDAT, and that's an important thing to understand. Like with ICITAP, you know, the person who leads our ICITAP team was a police chief in the United States. So she brings real expertise, and she has people on her team like that. With OPDAT, we have U.S. federal prosecutors who are here mentoring and training some of the prosecutors in the Kosovo system. We also do a lot of work with the Corrections Service to help ensure that when you know, Kosovans violate the law and they need to be held accountable, they're still citizens. They still have rights, and so they need to be handled in a system that respects those rights and provides a safe and secure environment for them to be incarcerated. We also, and this is my favorite part of it, is that we do a lot of work with civil society. And CLARD is one of our big partners. We work with many organizations here to provide resources for you to do what you do, which is represent and be the voice for citizens. The other part of that is that we're working on helping to build up the skills of mediators here so that citizens have a way to get into the system, the Kosovo official system, but maybe not have to go all the way through a court proceeding to have their rights protected. We're working with law faculties around the country to improve legal education, all these types of things. But so it's a big effort to support Kosovo.
Yes, we have been witnesses of a strong support and working together, partnership working together that the U.S. Embassy and the U.S. government is giving for years, not just recently in the last decade of independence, but also since after the end of the conflict, the United States government was always active, was always supporting and capacity building of the judicial system here in Kosovo. You mentioned a couple of very important things that the citizens, a lot of Kosovar citizens are not aware of what really means ICITAP, the work of ICITAP. Of course, I do understand what they mean and what they do work, because we have been working together, and sometimes we have had very good actions and very good campaigns to promote the work of ICITAP and OPDAT as well, because as well the U.S. Embassy have been sponsored and have been support a lot of laws that are in the line of European standards, so that Kosovo institutions and the legal framework is to be somehow to prepare Kosovo that one day, when it comes the day that Kosovo to be ready to join to the big family, which is our main goal and which is the dream of every Kosovar here in Kosovo. Let's go, if you don't mind, so if we could go just briefly to explain the work of each institutions that are directly involved and that INL is directly supporting and working with as well, including the civil society. You mentioned that CLARD is one of the, we had the, let's say, the privilege to and the honor to have your support and to have your experience and your expertise, because we have had in the past experts that were coming from the United States who shared good experiences that they had in the United States, and those experiences we are trying to transmit here and to implement to be to have a sustainable justice system, and as well to increase the trust of the citizens in the judicial system, because in the past and sometimes also now it happens that some people, they still do apply the old code, or as we call it, or kanun, so which is not the case that it's supposed to happen in 21st century, and not especially in Kosovo, that now we have created this good legal framework of laws. So can we start one by one to explain to the Kosovar audience that the importance and the good work that ICITAP has been done and it's continuing to do, including also the work with the, as you mentioned, with the police and with the Association of the Kosovo Women Police, which they have done a really great job now. To my point of view, the Kosovo Women Police Association is one of the most well organized association of the women police in the region, or maybe further.
Yeah, exactly.
And that thanks to your support and to the expertise and experts that you brought from the United States to share with our police.
Yeah, so you mentioned a lot of really important things. I'm happy to walk through the institutions and talk a little bit more about each part of the embassy and what we're doing to support. But one thing I want to pick up on what you said there is about the support the United States has given, and there's no question about that. Ambassador Hovenier, our newly arrived ambassador, was speaking with a group last week, and I thought put it really well. We're very proud of the support we've given to Kosovo, and we take great pride in what Kosovo accomplishes with our support. But really, it's Kosovo has accomplished these things, and it's really important to remember that it's people in Kosovo who have done the right things over the last 20 years to really improve the situation. It doesn't mean the job is done. There's still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of improvement to be made. But sometimes it's important for Kosovo and the Kosovans who live here to take a step back and realize what has been accomplished to this point. That's a strong foundation for us to build on. And democracy is a process. It's not a one-day, everything solved type thing. The United States is evidence of that. We're still working on it. We still have our issues that we have to work through. The other thing I think that's really important about that is that it's not just the United States. We have an overall objective. We want to see a Europe that's whole, free, and at peace. And without Kosovo succeeding, that will not be accomplished. Kosovo is an important part of the European future and the transatlantic future. And so we work very closely also with the EU, our other European allies, with international organizations like the OSCE and others, to help get the support for Kosovo when the institutions of Kosovo and those officials and the civil society are ready to do something with it to make the country stronger and better. So as far as ISITAP, this is the U.S. Embassy's organization that really helps law enforcement. So INL, together with ISITAP, we work with the Kosovo police and with, as I mentioned, the police inspectorate of Kosovo, because it's important that we help Kosovo to build the institutions that hold police accountable. When the police do the right thing, it's great. But when they don't do the right thing, they need to improve. And so there's part of that as well. One of the best achievements that Kosovo has accomplished is the establishment of the Academy for Public Safety up in Vuštri. And ISITAP was really involved right from the very beginning in helping to build that academy that created the Kosovo police and helped form what is one of the most trusted institutions in the country and one of the best functioning police forces in the region. And just recently, that academy received international accreditation, the first academy in the region to do so. And in fact, I think it's one of the first in the world to receive this particular international accreditation in the United States from an organization called EDELEST. But
well,
it's
a
big deal.
Yes.
It's a really big deal.
Yeah, we should celebrate for that. I mean, people, they don't know that.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing this great information. I mean, this is a great success for Academy of Police Academy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is we helped support, but it was the Kosovo officials up there, the people who work at the academy, that did everything that was required in order to get that achievement, and I think that's really important. You mentioned the Association of Women in the Kosovo Police.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have helped support over time is Kosovo institutions becoming more inclusive, and this is so important because citizens need to be able to recognize themselves when they engage with the government, right? So it's important that there are female police officers. It's important that there are police officers from different communities, regardless of ethnicity or whatnot, that represent all the citizens of Kosovo. And so that's true whether we're talking about the courts or the prosecution, or the correctional service or the police. And so we help to support that. So the Association of Women in the Kosovo Police is one of our closest partners. I think it's also a good example of what we try to do is help Kosovo create connections and create partnerships with other organizations that are international organizations. So they have relationships with their partners, whether those partners be in Italy or in Indonesia. We help these groups go to international conferences like the International Association of Women Police events, so that they can learn from their fellow professionals about how to better serve citizens here at home. So that's an important thing. I mentioned OPDAT as well, and I think this is an extremely important institution. So over the past few years, OPDAT has been working to help strengthen the prosecution here, and has been working with various units, but helping to build the capacity of prosecutors to understand how best to evaluate cases, and when those cases need to be taken to court, formal charges need to be filed, how best to build the case so that justice can be served. It's important to remember, though, that there are specialties that need to be addressed sometimes. We focus a lot on corruption, for example, and there's been work there, and I think there have been accomplishments. But other things like working with a special unit to handle domestic violence crimes and violence against women, which is a serious problem in my own country. It's a serious problem here in Kosovo and throughout the region.
No, nobody's perfect. I mean, everybody has this problem.
Yeah, nothing's perfect, but it's something we need to work on together. And so another big accomplishment for Kosovo is that with OPDAT support, the Office for Victims' Compensation has really become a leader in the region. And other countries now look to Kosovo about how do you organize this, because the approach you have to take on an issue like domestic violence is that it has to be centered on the needs of the victim, right? We need to protect the needs of the victim. That's the first part of justice. And so I think as people are watching a show like yours, and they face a situation, domestic violence is only one example. Yeah. But they need to understand that there are people they can turn to for help. Some of those might be an organization like yours that offers free legal aid. There are people in the Kosovo government that really do have a focus on victims and helping victims, so they can turn there. And it's part of the overall accomplishment that Kosovo is working on right now, I'll say. We're very encouraged that Kosovo recently adopted a strategy about how to address gender-based and domestic violence. And so a lot of good work from the Ministry of Justice, and a lot of good work from other ministries, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Interior. But civil society was very engaged in that process, and that made it better. The strategy is stronger because of that collaboration between the government, institutions, and civil society.
We are still here, so we are still, we have a lot of things and we have a lot of work to do, because we have the strategy, but we need to see that making happen on the ground. So we are going to be, like, as always, the real watchdogs of the government, so asking from them accountability and responsibility, because citizens need to be protected. Citizens need to have trust on what government applies and adopts. So they need to trust on the strategies for real, not just good written in paper. So
yeah, exactly.
We are going to do that, and of course in partnership with all partners, including you, INL, US Embassy, and all the relevant actors and stakeholders. We are going to be watchdogs, even though that we have sometimes we have this hesitations that the government, just like in the past happens, that they build good strategies, but at the end of the day, they didn't apply in practice the strategy.
Yeah, so, I think that's actually a very important point. Well, two things there. Number one, the role of civil society in being a partner and a watchdog for government. And I think it's important that when the government does the right thing, you guys give them credit for that. Of course. But it's equally important that when they're not doing the right thing, you hold them accountable. Yeah. And you mentioned the issue here of the fact that if you look on paper, Kosovo has the best laws you can imagine, right? The best strategies. It's about turning them into action and following through on those plans. Another big effort that we've supported over the past few years from INL and others in the embassy, OPDAT was really involved, USAID was really involved in developing a rule of law strategy. So a general strategy with our European partners, we supported this process, and that exists on paper now. But the time has come to take it from the paper and turn it into real life. And so we're looking at how we can support that. We'll continue to be supporting, but we're also looking at how the government of Kosovo will take action.
Yeah, that's important thing. You mentioned, you raised a very good point of huge and strong support, not just in financial resources, but in professional capacity building of institutions on fighting domestic violence in Kosovo. OPDAT is one of those institutions that have been working so hard for years, and finally to have a law that compensates victims of crime, as you mentioned. And that, thanks to the support and the work of the OPDAT, we have now this law applicable. It's a normal standard now in the court. So every court decision that comes, and there is a fee that goes directly to the fund for compensation of victims of crimes. But for the audience, victims of crimes are not only victims of domestic violence, but victims of crime are also victims of sexual abusement, victims of trafficking of human beings. So all of those victims, they do fit within this legal framework, and they have the right to compensation. But still, in the practice, you have been working as well, trained as well, and support the victims' advocates. So
yes,
they are the ones now who are the first, let's say, support that comes from the state to help victims to be reintegrated, not just in the court processes, but also to open the door for integration in society, to avoid all the pain that they have gone through. So, how is the cooperation now going on with those institutions, the victims' advocates? Now, recently, maybe later we'll talk as well about the one very important thing that you mentioned in the beginning, the mediation process.
yes, yeah.
Good. The mediation is very important here. Citizens, we are trying through our TV shows to talk and to inform the public that how important is mediation. We have a really good framework and institutions and mediators, licensed mediators, professionals who are there to help citizens to solve their issues, to solve their problems faster, cheaper, and easier.
Yeah, exactly.
So, can we talk about this? How is the support and the professional support that U.S. government and INL, in particular, INL is giving to these very important institutions?
Absolutely. And you're 100% correct about the victim advocates. I should have mentioned them as well. And OPDAT continues to work with them because that is the face that's maybe the first face that oftentimes people who need assistance, a victim of one of these crimes, maybe it's a police officer, but often the victim's advocate is right there, and they do tremendous work, and OPDAT is supporting them as they build their capacities to support the victims. One of the things you talked about was mediation, and we're trying to work with the judicial system and here to help make it more clear to citizens that it's so important for citizens to protect their rights and use the formal system when they need to, right? But there isn't only one path through the formal system. So there may be instances, depending on the crime and the circumstances, where you have to go through a formal court hearing. That takes a long time. We know that. The courts need to get more efficient. They need to move more quickly. one of the ways that people can receive protection for their rights and a good resolution, if the circumstances are the right ones, is to turn to mediators. And these are people who are certified by the government to help them work through the problem. And I think you hit the most important points, but it will be faster, it will be less expensive, and it will be less stressful if they can use this method. So we're working together with the Kosovo Justice Academy to help build a group of what we're calling master mediators. These will be people with advanced skills, not only in how to conduct mediation, but in how to train other mediators to do the job properly. And so that project, we have people from Washington, D.C., expert U.S. mediators in Kosovo right now as we speak. They're conducting training and they're engaging with the institutions too, because an important part, we're working with the Kosovo Justice Council, or the Judicial Council, the Kosovo Prosecutorial Council, and the Bar Association of Kosovo. Because when people come, if you're a normal citizen and you haven't had much experience with the legal system, and all of a sudden you, for the first time, find you need to engage with it, you take the advice of other people, right? Some of those people are like CLARD and civil society organizations, but you might have an attorney of your own. So it's important that that attorney help the victim find the best route to find justice or to receive justice. And so it's important that the prosecutors know this can be a good way for them to protect citizens' rights, is to go through mediation. Judges need to have better confidence in the process of mediation and the outcome. And so we're working not only with the mediators to improve their capabilities to do things right, do things correctly, but also with these other actors so that they support people when they want to use mediation instead of a formal court hearing, so that they can get justice in the cheapest, quickest, and less stressful way they can.
You mentioned experts coming, super experts, mediators coming from the United States. Citizens here, and until now, they are more informed. Mediation has been done here through, as I mentioned before, using the old traditions of code of Kosovo, Kanun, called Kanun.
Yep.
Now that is history and supposed to be and must be history. Can you tell us how does it work that the mediation in the United States, so it could be more attractive as well here for the citizens? Because recently now we have the mediators also established, as far as I do recall, also in the prosecutorial office and in the courts as well. So they could refer those cases directly to the mediators in order to use these three things: biggest, cheapest, fast.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Sharing those experiences of real professionals in United States, it is an added value for judicial system, and also an added value not just for mediators but also for the reinforcing the rule of law here and also increasing the trust of the citizens to use more, to address more their issues to the mediators.
Yeah, and it's a different situation in different parts of the country, because our system, state laws control some of these systems. The places where mediation works the best, people seem to be most satisfied with the justice system. And so that's one of the reasons. And an area where mediation first really took off was in the commercial space, so disputes between businesses. And USAID had a project to work on that, and INL took this over because, according to Kosovo law, there are also criminal instances where it's appropriate to use mediation. And so that's what we've tried to do, is build on that. You're right, judges can refer, prosecutors can recommend that cases go to mediation. So the reason that we find people are more satisfied with the outcome of their process when they turn to mediation is it allows them to protect their rights, get a satisfactory resolution to their case with the least stress possible in all these different ways. And it's not just the United States where mediation has been a big success. In many European countries, it's kind of the standard. And again, coming back to that idea, you know, we're trying to promote changes in Kosovo, or support changes in Kosovo that meet up to European standards, because as we talked about earlier, you know, that's where Kosovo's future, and we do want Kosovo to be ready when Europe knocks on the door.
Of course, and we do want that as civil society, we are trying to push the government to respect the court institutions, court decisions, because we have seen that in the past that a lot of important court institutions and court decisions have not been respected by the Kosovo government, and we are not satisfied with that. So in this case, having in mind that a good partnership, if I may call it so, that Kosovo government and all institutions that they do have with the US government, which would be your message to the government and the institutions when it's about to respect the court decisions? We have a couple of cases that the government has completely ignored. So, and we as a civil society, we are doing our best to push the government to respect the law, to respect the court decision, because this is how as you mentioned, the democracy would be built step by step, starting from respecting the rights of everyone, including as well now in this case is the court decisions.
Yeah, and it's absolutely fundamental to the health of democracy here that when the Kosovo Constitutional Court issues a ruling, it's respected and it's implemented. And there are very high-profile cases. You know, there's been a lot of attention about the case with the Chani Monastery. That's an important one, but all of these. And it's not only about the constitutional court decisions, it's about respecting the institution of the judiciary. And so the court decisions that are issued, government needs to act in order to implement them. And the government also needs to respect the process and not interfere in the judicial process. The judiciary needs to be independent. That's fundamental to democracy. And the United States is a good example in this case, is that, you know, we started out with a very grand idea about equal rights for people, but that was only a very small set of people in the beginning, right? But it was by using the formal institutions to constantly expand the circle of people who were included and had their rights respected. As you know, just a few decades ago in the United States, it was still possible for states to pass laws that said, if you're white, you can go to this part of a building. If you're black, you can't. You can only go here. There was horrible segregation in the United States.
We are facing with this problem as well sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. And you know, it was by citizens who were being discriminated against, having faith in institutions and continually going back. They didn't win the first time they went to the court. They didn't win the first time that they brought up the issue, but they kept going back. And eventually we've gotten to a situation that's much, much better. I can't honestly say everything is perfect. We're still working to ensure equality for everyone in the United States, regardless of their gender or their racial identity or their sexual orientation. And by the way, next month is Pride Month here in Kosovo. We're very excited to participate in some of the events and look at Pride Month in support of the LGBTQI+ community, and have good friends who are in the civil society organizations who are supporting that as well. But you know, I think the institutions have a responsibility. The people who work in the institutions have a responsibility to do their jobs right. But people who are the ordinary citizens of Kosovo also have a responsibility that when the time comes that they need the services, they need the justice, you need to go to the formal institutions and pursue every avenue you have there to protect your rights, because it's not only about your own case, it protects your family, it protects your neighbors, it protects the entire country to help build these constitutions and help democracy move forward.
Shawn, thank you very much for your time. This is the whole time that we had in the disposal. I do believe that the good messages have been sent not just to the citizens of Kosovo, but also to the government of Kosovo. So everybody, we are all partners here. We have one goal: to respect the rule of law and human rights in Kosovo, to build a sustainable democracy, to have Kosovo ready one day to join the big family. Once again, thank you for your time, and thank you for all the support that you have, U.S. government has been giving to Kosovo institutions and Kosovo civil society as well. So we do believe that in the near future we will continue working and doing our best job, our best to have everything working properly. So one day we could be equal, not just with a good legal framework, but also adopting and respecting them in the ground. So thank you once again for being here with us and sharing these very important informations and messages to the Kosovars.
Thank you. I love being here. I can't say there's a better place in the world for an American diplomat to work. Kosovo is important, and we feel so welcome. It's really humbling to be able to support the efforts of people like you and others in Kosovo as you build a stronger and more inclusive, more prosperous country.
Thank you very much. Shikues të dashur, faleminderit që na ndoqët, kaq kishim kohën për sot. Shpresoj dhe besoj që ishit e kënaqur dhe ju dhe morët mesazhe shumë të rëndësishme nga përfaqësuesit e ambasadës amerikane këtu në Prishtinë. Deri në emisionin e radhës, miru takofshim.